Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're an international visitor, a student, or a new professional heading to the US, you've probably got a lot on your to-do list. One of the biggest questions I hear is, how can I open a US bank account without being a citizen or resident? It's a fantastic question, and today we're going to demystify the entire process. Hey there, let's kick things off by tackling a huge misconception that scares a lot of people away. I've heard this question so many times. Do I have to be a US citizen to open a US bank account? And the answer is a resounding no. It's a common belief, but it's simply not true. You don't have to be a citizen or even a permanent resident to open an account here. This is fantastic news if you're an international student, a temporary worker, or even just a tourist visiting for an extended period. So why does this myth exist? Well, banks have to follow strict federal rules to verify your identity and address. They need to make sure you are who you say you are. This process can be a little different for non-citizens, which is where the confusion starts. They'll ask for extra documents that a US citizen might not need, but don't let that intimidate you. The key thing to remember is that you absolutely can do this. Now, while you don't need the US citizenship, there is one crucial requirement. You typically need a physical US address. This doesn't mean you need to own a house. It could be a dorm room, an apartment you're renting, or even a friend's address you're staying at temporarily. This is because the bank needs a mailing address to send your debit card and other important documents. So if you've got a valid US street address, you're already halfway there. If you're wondering which banks allow this, the good news is that most major banks like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citibank all state that non-citizens and non-residents can open accounts. You just have to meet their specific eligibility rules. And as we'll get into, that's often just about having the right paperwork. It's all about providing the correct documentation to prove who you are and where you're staying. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the documents. Think of this as your personal banking toolkit. Banks have to follow strict federal rules, like the Patriot Act, to verify your identity and address. So you can't just walk in with a smile. You need to be prepared. Here's your ultimate checklist, broken down so it's easy to understand. Your ID. You'll need a government-issued photo ID, and for most international visitors, that means your passport. It's your most important document, so make sure it's valid. Many banks also want to see a second form of ID. This could be a driver's license from your home country, a student ID, or a credit card with your name on it. It's always a good idea to bring more than you think you need. Proof of US address. This is a big one. You need to show the bank that you have a physical presence in the US. This document can be a utility bill in your name, like for electricity or water, a rental agreement, or even a letter from your employer or university. Even a dorm or a rented address works. Some banks, like Bank of America, may even require proof of your home country address, such as a foreign driver's license or a utility bill from home. Taxpayer ID. Every bank needs a way to report your financial activity to the government. This is done through a tax identification number. For US citizens, this is their SSN. But for you, it's a common myth that you need an SSN to open an account. In reality, banks can and do open accounts for foreigners with no SSN. They'll often accept an individual taxpayer identification number, or ITIN, instead. If you don't have an ITIN, the bank can typically have you fill out a simple tax form called IRS Form W-8BEN right there when you open the account. It's a very common process and nothing to be worried about. Finally, you'll need some funds to get started. Most accounts require an initial deposit, which is just the money you put into the account to get it active. This can be a small amount, often between $25 and $100. Some accounts may even let you open with a $0 deposit if you're setting up a direct deposit from a job, for instance. Before you head to the bank, always call the specific branch to confirm exactly what documents they need. Every bank has its own specific policies, and you want to be as prepared as possible. So you might be wondering, can't I just do all this from my laptop? That's a great question, and for the most part, the answer is no. When it comes to opening a bank account in the US as an international visitor, most traditional banks require you to show up in person, and there's a good reason for this. It all comes down to something called the Patriot Act. Think of it like a security rulebook for banks. This law requires them to physically check and verify your identity and legal presence. This is how they make sure you are who you say you are. They have to see your original documents with their own eyes to prevent fraud and other illegal activities. It's a crucial step in the process. For example, both Bank of America and Wells Fargo will tell you to make an appointment at a local branch to open your account. Even if a bank lets you start the process online, you'll almost always have to go to a branch to finalize everything and show your original IDs. Even Citibank's online application, for instance, is a prime example. It's explicitly for US citizens or residents only, so an international visitor must go to a branch. Chase also stresses that you need to bring your original IDs to a branch even if you start the process online.
So, while it might feel like a bit of a hassle in this digital age, that in-person visit is a necessary security step. It's how the bank builds trust and ensures everything is done by the book. Just think of it as your final step before you're officially part of the US banking system. So, what about the big players? Let's break down how some of the most well-known US banks handle this process, because they're all a little different. First up, Bank of America. They're a really popular choice for international visitors, and they even have a special International Professional Program. Think of it like a welcome kit designed just for you. What you need to know is that they want proof of your US address, like a utility bill or rental agreement, and they often ask for proof of your permanent foreign address. It's their way of getting the full picture. You can't start this process on their website and finish it online. You'll have to go into a branch to complete the process. Next, let's talk about Chase. They are also very welcoming to non-residents. The key difference here is that they require two forms of ID, and one of them must have your US address on it. This could be a US driver's license or another official document. You can actually start your application online, which is a nice convenience, but you'll still have to make a trip to a physical branch to show them your original identification. Then we have Wells Fargo. They're a solid option, and they're another bank that insists on an in-person visit for non-residents. While their online application might look like an option, it often requires a social security number, SSN, which a lot of international visitors won't have. So your best bet with Wells Fargo is to simply book an appointment and visit a branch directly to open your account with the required documents. And finally, let's look at Citibank. This bank is a bit different because they have a huge global network. If your home country has a Citibank branch, you might be able to start the process there. This is especially helpful for people who are part of their international banking programs. However, just like the others for a standard account, you will still need to show up in person at a US branch to verify your identity and documents. Remember, every bank is a little different, so I can't stress this enough. Check their specific requirements online or call a local branch before you go. This will save you so much time and hassle. Okay, so you've got your documents, you know which bank to go to, but before you walk in, let's talk about money. Specifically, the money you could lose in fees if you aren't careful. Think of it like a subscription service for your bank account. Most US checking accounts have a monthly maintenance fee, which is a small charge, usually around $10 to $15. But here's the good news. Banks don't actually want you to pay this fee. They want you to use their services, so they give you easy ways to get out of it or waive it. The most common ways to do this is by maintaining a minimum balance in your account. For example, a bank might waive the fee if you keep at least $500 in your account every day. Another way is by setting up a direct deposit, like getting your paycheck deposited directly into your account each month. So always ask how you can get the fee waived. Now let's talk about using your debit card. When you're in the US, you'll probably use a debit card a lot, but what about getting cash? Most banks have their own network of ATMs where you can withdraw money for free. However, if you use an ATM that doesn't belong to your bank, you'll likely get hit with a small fee, typically a few dollars. My best advice, use your own bank's ATM whenever you can. And what about using your card outside the US? This is where a couple of tricky fees come in. First, there's the foreign transaction fee. This is a small percentage, usually around 3%, that banks charge you every time you make a purchase in another currency. So if you buy something for $100 while traveling, you might actually be charged $103. Second, there are international wire transfer fees. If you need to send or receive a large sum of money to or from another country, banks will charge a fee for this service. An international wire transfer can cost you anywhere from $32 to $45. But here's a pro tip for you. For international money transfers, you can often save a lot of money by using a specialized service like Wise or Remitly, which are often much cheaper than a traditional bank. These services are built for international transfers and are great for moving money across borders without all the bank fees. So when you choose a bank, look beyond the basic account and ask about the fine print. What are the fees? How can I get them waived? And what will it cost me to use my card abroad? This will save you a lot of money in the long run. Now for a few final pro tips to make this whole process a lot smoother. These are the things I wish someone had told me from the start. First up, let's talk about timing. Don't wait until the day before you need to access your money to open an account. Banks often need a few days to process your application and get everything ready. They'll have to mail your debit card and checkbook, and you're not going to want to be stuck without a way to pay for things. So I recommend opening your account as soon as you have all your documents ready. While you're waiting for your debit card to arrive, be sure to have some cash or traveler's checks on hand. Next, let's look at some alternatives to traditional banks. If you're only visiting for a short period, or if opening a bank account is proving too difficult, there are other options. You might hear the terms fintech or multi-currency online accounts. What do these mean? Fintech is just a fancy way of saying financial technology. These are companies like Wise or Remitly or Payoneer. They offer online accounts that are not traditional bank accounts, but can still receive money, hold different currencies, and often come with a debit card. This is super helpful because they can often provide you with a US account number and routing number without requiring a US address. They're a great temporary solution and can sometimes be a lot cheaper for international transfers and ATM withdrawals. And finally, remember to use the right communication tools. Most major banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo offer multilingual support. So if English isn't your first language, don't be afraid to ask for a translator or a staff member who speaks your language when you go to the branch. You can even call ahead and ask if they have someone who can assist you in your native language. It's a simple step that can make a huge difference in making sure you understand everything and feel comfortable with the process.